And just like that, the show has actually become something that is watchable. Now, we still have haters out there. They hate everything about this. I'm one of them. Hi, my name is Yolanda, and welcome back to my channel. And just like that, I have hot takes. There are more than 10 of them. This episode, the pacing, thank you. Way better. Characters, oof, not so much. I'm going to get spicy, do my review, recap, and roast of episode 8, Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. And for each of the hot takes, I will let you know what my disposition is. This is the fun of Sex in the City. This is the fun of And Just Like That, where we positionally put ourselves in the mix. And this episode invites us in a way that other episodes have not. So to get started, opening scene. Yeah, I hate Che too. Okay? They bother me. I was bothered. One, seeing Che up on stage with a microphone, not being funny again. Let's retcon Che's character for the next season if they are back. Let's make them an advocate. Because they get up, they give speeches. They do not tell jokes. They are not funny. They are charismatic, and I think we'd like them so much more if they didn't have the job title of comedian. But that's not my opening hot take. My opening hot take, open marriage. Che knew that they were sleeping with a married woman, and the first thing that they assume, without speaking, without communicating, it's 2022, we're not doing that when we're dating. Good to know. 3 weeks after, it's been a year and 3 weeks after all of this, and not once in conversation did it come up. Now, Miranda, I'm not putting this on Miranda. Everybody hates Miranda and Miranda's wig. I hate Miranda's wig. I told you, I am a Miranda, so I understand the awkwardness. I understand not knowing what to do about one's feelings, and I understand having a spouse that ain't it. So I'm sympathizing with Miranda in this situation. You knew she was married. They jumped to open marriage. Not in this universe. We've skipped timelines where everybody has lost 50 IQ points. Maybe. Carrie's black scent is getting on my nerves. Okay? It's never a good look. I wish they would stop. I wish they would stop on TV. I wish they would stop in these YouTube streets. AAVE is a dialect, speaking a language that you do not understand. You look and sound like an idiot. If you suffer from intermittent black scent, there are treatment options available. Just stop. Get some help. Okay, on to pleasant stuff. We're not talking about Seema's situation, which is the one that's interesting to all of the single ladies out there. I'm just saying, it's just disgruntled biddies, the ones that are left out there, the ones that may be married and terribly unhappy, that are invested emotionally in this show. Why aren't we hearing a lot more about Seema's plight? I'll tell you why. Because there's no interest in the characters of color here. No interest whatsoever. Number 3, outfit of the episode, I am bewitched. I am bewitched. It is my dream to roll around in a dress that costs thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. The petal dress would be my first choice from Dior, but Versace ain't no slouch either. That dress lives rent-free in my mind. It does. I remember it from the original. It's about accurately remembering what went on in Sex in the City. A lot of us need to go back and watch the conservative coded messaging that we were getting from Sex in the City from the beginning. Yeah, the 90s was trash. And going back, a lot of things from that show do not age well. Stay tuned once I figure out how many episodes I can cram into a 20-minute, 25-minute, let's talk about this. that content will be here. So if you'd like, comment, and subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. The LOL of the episode. I was checking Daddy's penis for cancer. Number one, that wasn't Daddy's penis. Ooh. That was a prop. It had to be a prop. That didn't look real. It's been a while. It's been a good and long while for me since I've seen one up close in personal. What was with the full frontal? Why did we need to see that? One. Two, that scene would have been so much sexier if Charlotte said while I was down here instead of Harry saying it. It was a little cringy, but Sex and the City has always been cringy. You can fight me in the comments. I live for engagement, so please leave your takes down below. So this rolls into the you still blow Harry conversation. I'm going to suspend disbelief enough because I'm rooting for the lilies of the world. Being 15 years old and being very, very innocent, and even though it's New York City and private school, which I did, okay, in the 90s, and I was naive. I didn't make it to 15 being naive. I would have known what was going on in there. But there is something to be said about a wholesome character, Lily. Writing it that way, it is fantasy. And we're here for the fantasy. And I wish that for all 15-year-old girls. You know, checking for the cancers is important, you know. That's not what she was doing, but, you know, whatever. Anywho's, that prop. Did we need to see that? Did we need to see that? Number one, I think the first time I watched it, and I've watched it 3 times already, I didn't see it. My daughter saw it, and I was like, oh, it's been that long that I've just kind of like blanked out. I did not see it. And then I saw it. I was like, that's not real. The second thing that we had in this episode, well, y'all are weird. Y'all are weird. Are we in the 1950s or is it 2020? Is there an expiration date on when one gives one's partner a BJ? Like, you still blow Harry? Like, this is the shock of the episode? That was interesting to watch. I know it happens. I know these conversations still happen. I lived in the South for a while, but like, it takes me aback each and every time. I'm like, in consensual relationships, we do things for each other, for our partners, for our own satisfaction. It should be normal, right? By now, I have been around men who have this conversation about how it stops after they've gotten engaged, or it stops after they've gotten married, or they only get it on their birthdays. And I'm like, oh, I feel so sorry for y'all. Like, I really do. That has never been part of my sex life, but y'all out there, this is a cultural thing, I think. I can't speak for the entirety of the black delegation, but in the streets that I roll around in, age appropriate, we're talking about between the age of 35 and, oh, I'd say 70, 75. Family, the women I hang out with, there's no expiration date on doing that if you are disposed to doing that. Like, some women are not. Some women are not, and I get it. To each his own. But we're putting an expiration date on that? Like, we don't do that in our 50s? Sound off in the comments. I'm bewildered. Carrie being cool. Carrie was never cool. Carrie was never cool. Comedy, she's always been a little awkward. She's always been a little bit off. She was never one of the cool ones. Why the impetus now? But I am going to say the cool thing about Carrie in this episode was her interaction with Lee. Again, I thought that the whole storyline revolving around this, unrealistic, a little awkward, but both Carrie, listen, thing, because if you see somebody with a 55 at the end of their name liking your daughter's very, very sexy snap, then you do ask questions. And as awkward as it is, you do have that conversation. So I really liked the way that was handled. And Carrie as auntie for the first time, because Miranda had a whole ass baby and Carrie was never auntie to that baby. She was never auntie to any of those kids. So seeing Carrie as auntie and doing auntie things, I was here for it. So I'm giving a kudos to writing that very, very, very nice moment between Carrie, Miranda, and Lily, getting to know Lily a little bit, and having someone of the age of 15, really, because there are innocents out there. There are innocents out there. Now, New York City private school? No. But I like that. So Carrie gets cool points for being an old ass auntie. I have always been of the disposition since I was knee high to a grasshopper's thigh. Get off my lawn. I've always been an old lady, and I'm okay with it. I want the old ladies to round into their old ladiness. Thing real quick rolled across my timeline that the Golden Girls and the ladies from And Just Like That are the same age. Golden Girls was funny. Golden Girls, Rose. Okay, so I'm a Miranda in Sex and the City, and as much as I wanted to be Dorothy or Sophia, I'm really a Rose socially in Golden Girls. Which one are you? Miranda, Rose. Good character combination. But yes, it's accurate. So I found all of that to be bewitching. Moving on. The whole conversation about divorce with Steve went as expected. I am not Team Steve. There are a whole bunch of Steve, like, give Steve a chance. Steve's a good guy. I'm going to do a whole ass episode on the Steves of the world. Steve is not a good guy. He's not a good partner. He is not a good husband. Good riddance. Hot take, Steve. Things I've hated about this show. Big, great. He's gone. 2, let's get rid of Steve. Steve as a partner for Miranda would have never worked. Shouldn't have never worked. And Miranda has been suffering. We know Miranda has been suffering. And when she got sober, she realized how much she was suffering. My grandparents were married for 60 years. 60 years. They weren't wilding out. They weren't clubbing. They were not drinking. They did spend evenings together in the home, in the domicile, especially in their later years before he passed. But they were both interesting people. They were conversationalists. They talked about the issues of the day. They were involved in their community and with their families. So getting old does not equal being boring. And the sin of being carried in a relationship, not holding up your end, being stagnant, being stationary. There is something to be said about one, Miranda taking the stance, and one that I did when I got divorced, that I was better off alone. As lonely as I am now, I'm still better off alone. That neutral partner, that partner that is idling, that partner that's taking up all your time, that partner that doesn't do their share of the domestic work or take care of the child. What are you there for? And we all know that Miranda was the moneymaker of the two. So what is your function in the marriage besides taking from it, Steve? Being there, being a lump, it's not enough. It wasn't enough for me. It shouldn't be enough for anybody else. Hot take. So I was bothered by Steve's stance. What does he love about Miranda besides the things that she does for him? How active was he in raising Brady? It seems that he's always been passive. He's saying he's too old to rally for us. Did he ever rally for them in the first place? Because going back, reconstruction, the actions of Steve just wanted Miranda. Like, Miranda always went out and rallied for them. It seemed like Miranda was rejecting Steve, and she should have, with her whole body. I didn't like Aiden either. These supposed nice guys, we're going to do a character assassination. I'm going to eviscerate these characters because the people that we were quote-unquote rooting for, terrible. Sex and the City, these women were falling for terrible people. And just like that, we're not staying with terrible people. Move on. Move on, Miranda. When Miranda got in that taxi cab and very, very innocently, like, she's like, I'm in a rom-com. You are in a rom-com. That was the meta moment of the episode. So what say you, audience? Was this episode better? I think it was. Was this episode funny or entertaining to you? I think it was. Has And Just Like That found its stride? And what are the possibilities for the finale? I want to know. And hopefully it has nothing to do with Carrie. Because Carrie's storyline is so not interesting. So not interesting. Except that moment at the end was a nostalgic throwback. She was finally happy in that dress, because the first time she was in that dress, she was miserable. So, what are your takes on this episode? And I will be back shortly. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, bye.